Hello and welcome to my astrology YouTube channel. My name is Sydney. I'm a professional astrologer and I've been studying astrology for over 15 years. I love it so much. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about Jupiter in Cancer, which is coming up any day now on June 9th. Jupiter will be making its transit into Cancer. So I'm going to be talking about what each rising sign can expect from this time period. Before I get into it, like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. I greatly appreciate it so much. I do have my website in the description for those of you who would like to book a reading with me, and I do offer transit readings. I offer a lot of different readings, but for those of you who are very curious and want to get super specific in what this Cancer Jupiter transit can bring you, that would be an ideal reading to book. I also have an email list going, so if you sign up for that, you will receive exclusive promotions and discounts and astrological insights. Okay, let's get into it. We're gonna start with Jupiter transiting the first house, or for Cancer rising individuals. So Jupiter moving through the first, I really love this. It can bring a lot of abundance. It brings a lot of fertility. So for those of you who are trying to get pregnant, this is a really good time to attempt that, especially because the first house has so much to do with our body, our physical prowess. So this can heighten the fertility in your actual body. In being so abundant and lucky and fertile, this can allow for a lot of influx in terms of like new opportunities, new financial streams of income. This can note scholarships, loans, grants. So just more like lucky happenings, I guess, that can affect you on a personal level. Now, your intuition can also heighten. You might even undergo some type of like spiritual education as well. So there can be an increase here in investing in your spiritual practices, gifts, skills. Also, Cancer energy has a lot to do with femininity. So your feminine expression can be heightened here. For some of you, this could note healing your connection to your feminine energy. For some, this could note an added emphasis on your feminine expression, whatever that might mean for you. Another way some of this energy can manifest is weight fluctuation or weight gain. That's just because Cancer brings forth fullness, so there can be fuller features here. Jupiter, it's expansive and inflates, so some of your features can become inflated during this time, which can allude to some weight gain. So don't be surprised if that happens. And tying into weight gain, that kind of creature of habit nature that Cancer brings forth could note maybe some indulgence, certain coping skills and lifestyle habits that lean in favor of like just needing to feel good, needing to feel that comfort. So getting more interested in like comfort foods and maybe curling on the couch and watching movies and stuff, doing whatever you can to really appease your emotions and self-soothe. That's very normal during this time frame. Now I'm going to talk about Jupiter transiting the second house, or if you have Gemini rising. So this is a very financially lucrative period. Financially, did I say that right? Because Jupiter, again, it's expansive, it's abundant. So when it's moving through the second house of finances, if you put two and two together, this could note financial influx, a new stream of income. Not to mention Gemini being like such a multi-talented rising sign, it's not impossible to fathom that you could have an added source of income. So maybe you already have a primary job, but you are looking into freelance work, or you're thinking about just branching out financially, diversifying your income sources. So this is a really good time to do that. This can bring positive news, positive results when it comes to your finances, when it comes to your professional objectives. Now, the second house, aside from money, also has a lot to do with your actual foundation and sense of security and stability. That said, Jupiter Cancer moving through the second house, Jupiter having so much to do with travel and things that are not familiar to us, this could note branching out of your comfort zone. In some cases, for some of you, this could note an actual relocation altogether, so moving to a new location. This is really gonna depend on what else transit Jupiter is like forming an aspect to in your chart, or what other transits you have going on. But this could note some type of prominent change to your actual foundation. And this can include your living environment, not just relocating, but maybe redecorating, changing up your home environment in some way. That can definitely happen here. Now we're gonna be talking about Jupiter transiting the third house, or if you have Taurus rising. Okay, the third house has a lot to do with communication. Cancer is a very secretive sign, and Jupiter is going to inflate those like Cancerian themes. So this could note a need to be a little more hush-hush. You might be feeling a lot more private, a lot more secretive. It's possible that you also become hyper aware of what you engage with online. So the third house, in dealing with communication, it also has a lot to do with social media. So this could note, not to mention Jupiter is such a globalized planet. It has so much to do with like worldly affairs. you might kind of take a step back from social media. You might go on something of a hiatus or a break. It's possible that you've reached a point in your life where you're just over the internet, or you're over like having a set presence on the internet. So this can note deleting your personal accounts and making like burner accounts, for example, or just being a lot more mindful about what you share online with strangers, essentially. So there's kind of this increased awareness and this caution that can occur when it comes to what you choose to do on the internet. Now, Jupiter Cancer in the third, aside from just the internet and being kind of cautious there, this can note being aware also of like what type of information you let other people in on, especially peers, even certain friends. There's just this increased need for privacy, like making sure that you're entitled to your privacy and your me time, not feeling like you have to give in to other people's entitlement towards you or their demands of you, like being able to create a boundary and a barrier and a sense of distance. For some of you, this can note an increased interest in spiritual education. The third house also has a lot to do with knowledge, as does Jupiter. So this can note taking up some type of new study that relates to spirituality. However, it can also note a new study relating to family dynamics, psychology, sociology, certain things pertaining to like home life matters, women, that's another thing, like any type of practice that heavily emphasizes the wellness and care of women, or like a woman-dominated study, some type of practice, that's another thing that can happen here. I will say too, Jupiter Cancer being in the third can lead to certain oral fixation. So like you might, revert back to maybe certain coping mechanisms like smoking cigarettes. Be very mindful with alcohol consumption during this time because it can border on like addictive tendencies. Not to mention sleep can be affected. This could note increased vivid dreams, insomnia, increased like psychic dreams, like maybe you wake up at 4 a.m. from like a really vivid, crazy dream, and then in a few weeks time, that dream actually manifests in real time. So your intuition is definitely gonna be heightened, and you need to follow that intuition, especially when it comes to your social relationships. Like if you are going to tell someone something and then you hear a voice in your head that's like, no, like don't say anything, you might want to listen to that voice. Now we're going to talk about Jupiter moving through the fourth house, or if you have Aries rising, Jupiter Cancer will eventually be transiting your fourth. The fourth house is all about family. So Jupiter Cancer being very expansive, also heightening fertility, this could lead to pregnancy. So you want to be really, really mindful. This can also lead to like an engagement period, more emphasis on domesticity and building up your home life. Remember, Jupiter being very expansive, it contributes to your home life. This could note gaining a new relative or getting engaged and married, like I just said, getting pregnant, having a baby. Any type of new introduction to the family life is very common when Jupiter moves in. Not to mention Jupiter has so much to do with things that are unfamiliar to us. So, having some person or some component enter your personal life that is very new to you. Now, on that note, in experiencing like newness and unfamiliarity in the home environment, this could note relocation and moving, similar to Jupiter moving through the second house. The fourth house, it's our sense of comfort, familiarity. So Jupiter moving through, that could note relocating, moving, selling your house, buying a new house. This can also just note changes to the home, not just in terms of people entering your personal life or your personal space, but this can note redecorating, like making necessary changes to the home, maybe undergoing an upgrade or some type of home project renovation. Now, in terms of the fourth house being so intimate and personal, this can also note an increased need to kind of just tend to your personal space. You might be a little more introverted during this time. You might be a little more self-concerned, like concerned with maintaining your sense of peace. You also might be a little more disinterested in like meeting new people or kind of branching out. Like you might during this time prefer to stay kind of in your tight-knit circle. Socialization might feel overwhelming. You might prefer to just kind of mind your P's and Q's and stay within the boundaries and limits of what you are comfortable in. If that makes sense, it doesn't mean that you can't meet new people or that you can't make friends or fall in love or have these new experiences. But there's kind of this energy that's like, I don't really want to deal with anything that's not meant for me. I don't want to deal with anything that's like gonna disrupt my peace, my safety, my security. And this is another transit period that can heighten that need to indulge or abide by certain coping mechanisms that bring forth a lot of comfort. Okay, now we're going to talk about Jupiter transiting the fifth house, or if you have Pisces rising. So the fifth house is all about romance and self-expression, everything that feels really good to us. So on one hand, in a romantic sense, this could note heightened intimacy. So this could note forming a connection that feels really intimate, feels very spiritual, feels very profound. This can manifest in a few ways. So on one hand, this sounds great, right? Entering a new relationship or just having added intimacy into a pre-existing romantic life. However, Jupiter can be very on and off again. There is this sense of distance and difference that comes with it. So in an unfavorable case, this could note a relationship that's very dramatic, very soap opera, a relationship that you can't seem to quit, you can't seem to end it. There is this obsessive quality to Cancer especially. So yeah, this can note some tricky relationship dynamics that really challenge your ability to let go. Cancer energy, very difficult time letting go, especially if you do, have that Pisces rising connection. This is like very nostalgic, and that nostalgic energy can also translate to your childhood. So this could note surfacing childhood memories that maybe you just kind of forgot that they happened, or, for whatever reason you were repressing them or just not thinking about them. So this could note childhood memories that kind of come to the surface and force you to confront them on an emotional level. So this can bring forth a lot of healing when it comes to your childhood, and not just your childhood, but also your self-esteem as a result of maybe certain wounds and bruises that you dealt with when you were a child. Now, I will say a benefit of this transit is it can heighten fertility. So if you're trying to get pregnant, this is an amazing time to do so. This could note like an actual pregnancy trajectory and experience and giving birth. This can also note an engagement period. Cancer, Jupiter, it's very much about domesticity, Cancer especially, that energy. But Jupiter being added to that, it just kind of enhances Cancer's natural themes. So this could definitely note an engagement period for sure. Now, the 5th house also has a lot to do with self-expression and joy. So Cancer, Jupiter moving through your 5th can kind of heighten your feminine expression. It can bring you more in tune with your desires and also your talents. This can note hidden talents that kind of come out to the surface. So this can be a really fun transit in the sense that there's a lot of self-discovery, and it's kind of like unlocking certain feminine expressions that maybe you have a hard time tapping into, or maybe you just haven't really figured out exactly how to really harness and utilize your feminine energy, but this transit period can give you that that kind of outlet to do so. Not to mention the 5th house having so much to do with self-expression, Cancer, Jupiter being a very fertile sign, or placement, I should say. This transit period can bring good news when it comes to certain opportunities that really allow you to express yourself, express your talents. So if you have been like applying for something, or you're kind of like throwing your hat in the race, this can bring lucrative results as well. Now we're going to talk about Jupiter transiting the 6th house, or, if you have Aquarius rising. Okay, so this is another one that's kind of complicated. The 6th house has so much to do with our lifestyle, our habits, our health, our daily routine. Cancer, Jupiter moving through the 6th house can really force you to take a look at your habits, especially your coping mechanisms. Cancer being so much about emotional processing and emotional expression. Jupiter being a very indulgent planet, this can definitely note the need to face certain emotional coping mechanisms that might be holding you back or might be harming your health. There is kind of this addictive nature that can come with this type of transit, especially moving to the 6th. So you might be gravitating towards certain comforts that may or may not be good for you. This can also note a need to address certain eating habits that you have. Eating is another way that a lot of us, I know for me personally for sure, cope with certain things. It's something that brings us a lot of joy and pleasure. So this could note a need to kind of confront certain eating habits you have that may or may not be harming your body, things like that. Food in general, randomly enough, can become a big theme for people with Cancer, Jupiter, just because Cancer has so much to do with comfort. Jupiter is so expansive, it's abundant. It can kind of in some ways represent like the fruits of our labor in some ways. I'm trying to kind of paint a picture to help you understand how food can become really important here, basically. So in some cases, this can also lead to weight fluctuation, weight gain. That's very common for this time period. So if you do gain weight, I don't want you to be alarmed. It's just the expansive nature of Jupiter, Cancer moving through your house of health. That said, you can take preventative measures. You can use this time to definitely hone in on your health, and you still want to make sure you're respecting the limits of your body. You don't want to push yourself. You don't want to give into unfavorable habits, because that's the other thing too. When I talk about like eating habits or just lifestyle choices in general, it's not always going to be when we think like unhealthy, it's not always that stereotypical like overeating or overconsumption. Sometimes it's the opposite. Like it could be restrictive behaviors too, is another thing you might have to kind of look at and fine tune. Now, aside from health and kind of, adjusting your lifestyle habits, the financially lucrative energy of Jupiter Cancer can definitely bring exciting opportunities in your professional life. For some of you too, this can allow for some type of freedom or flexibility that allows you to work from home. So that's a way that can manifest. It might be that a certain professional opportunity requires you to relocate or move somewhere temporarily. That's another way that can manifest. It's possible that there's some type of hiatus or gap to be experienced in your professional life. Maybe you're like a new mom, for example, so you stay home with the kids. That's just because Jupiter does create that sense of distance. So this could note some type of hiatus or gap in your work life. That's not going to be for everybody. Like I said, for some people, that lucrative, fertile energy of Cancer Jupiter can definitely bring exciting professional and financial opportunities. But for some, that kind of homebody energy of Cancer can definitely come in, especially depending on what else it's an aspect to for you. So this could note taking time away from work, going through kind of a transitional period, or working from home, getting a job that gives you more time to stay at home. This can also note in some cases an increase in responsibility in your home life. So you might have some home matters that you really have to tend to. Now we're going to talk about Jupiter transiting the 7th house, or if you are a Capricorn rising. Okay, the 7th house has a lot to do with relationships and partnerships. Cancer Jupiter moving there, or moving through, this can allow for heightened intimacy in your one-on-one relationships. Similar to some other transits during this time, you might feel more inspired to kind of keep your circle small or really just focus on your most intimate personal relationships. You might not be in the position of wanting to kind of like extend yourself too much when it comes to meeting new people. Again, this doesn't mean that you can't meet new people or that you shouldn't meet new people, but you might just be really focused on your inner circle during this time due to the heightened intimacy that Cancer Jupiter brings. Now, on that note, for those of you who are single, this can lead to a really exciting and very spiritually felt intimate connection with another person. This can also bring new romantic opportunities. Again, Jupiter is very expansive, so when it's moving through the 7th, it can allow for some connection to people that, even if they're new in your life, there is that sense of recognition, there's that comfort, there's that feeling of familiarity and security. This can also allow for added emotional healing in your romantic or just your intimate personal relationships. So if there's some type of emotional conflict going on, like in a relationship of yours, this can give you that necessary time and space to work through it and heal it. Now, for some of you, if you're in toxic or unfavorable relationships, especially with Saturn moving into Aries during this time, or it did move into Aries, but it's going to be coinciding with Jupiter moving into Cancer, this could note some domestic disharmony that gives you that out that you might be needing. Now we're going to talk about Jupiter transiting the 8th house, or if you have Sagittarius rising. So the 8th house is very complex. It rules over transformations. It showcases some of our debts. So Jupiter Cancer moving through the 8th is actually kind of interesting because there are quite a few benefits here. So because the 8th house has so much to do with debts and also other people's money, meanwhile Cancer is a very intimate sign, Jupiter is abundant, and also Cancer being very fertile, this can note an inheritance. So this can note receiving something from a family member, from an intimate relationship. It might be an asset like inheriting land or property, inheriting a house. It could be something as kind of big and massive as inheriting a business, for example. However, this could just note a financial inheritance as well, some type of trust. Essentially, money can be owed to you during this time, specifically from your family or a very intimate, close connection. Now, on that note, there is a lot of opportunity to make a lot of money, but you still need to be discerning. That's because Jupiter is the gambler, essentially. So if you do suddenly come into money, it's still really wise that you be mindful, because Jupiter energy can be very tempted to play and go have fun and not always thinking long term. So money can kind of slip away very quickly here if you're not cautious. The same goes for taking on certain loans. So Jupiter Cancer moving through the 8th house can give you positive news or something, like being accepted for a loan, being considered a good candidate. So you can receive money in that respect too. But again, You want to make sure you're not biting off more than you can chew. Sometimes Cancer Jupiter, the eyes are bigger than the mouth, you know what I mean? So it's really important that you be totally mindful and very discerning about what you do accept when it comes to monetary assistance. Now, aside from that, Jupiter Cancer moving through the 8th house can also create, in some cases, some family conflict that has to be tended to, or just some type of family tension that has to be healed and addressed. So it's not always something as like explicit or overt as like an actual conflict or argument or major disagreement, but there might be some deep-seated tension that was created like long ago, maybe even in childhood, that you kind of have to sort through once and for all. So confronting unfavorable family circumstances is kind of inevitable here. And this can include too, like confronting certain karmic patterns that have been brewing in your family for quite a while, or recognizing all the ways that you kind of inherited some of your family's karmic debts. So there's definitely this added pressure here to be mindful of family patterns so that you do not repeat them. This is another transit as well that can heighten fertility, because the 8th house has a lot to do with the actual life cycle. So getting pregnant can definitely happen during this time. Now we're going to talk about Jupiter transiting the 9th house, or if you have a Scorpio rising. So the 9th house has a lot to do with travel and education. Jupiter also has a lot to do with travel and education, period. So having Cancer Jupiter moving through the 9th house can definitely inspire some type of educational journey similar to Jupiter moving through the 3rd. So this can inspire education relating to spirituality, so taking on a new spiritual practice, skill, gift, you know, just getting more immersed in your own sense of spirituality. This connotes studying philosophy, psychology, family dynamics, sociology, anything that is centered on women, family, and children, very common here. However, in some cases, this connotes studying stocks. This connotes studying certain investments, real estate. And another thing you can sometimes see here is an increased desire in studying like criminology, forensics, certain more morbid topics. So if you've been thinking about going back to school for like one of those themes mentioned, this is kind of a maybe your green flag, your thumbs up to maybe actually consider following through and doing that, because the energy here is just really great for engaging in any studies that kind of pertain to those themes I just mentioned. Now, Jupiter Cancer moving through the 9th is a really prominent indicator of moving, relocating, undergoing a major shift in your sense of familiarity and comfort. However, even through that relocation or moving around, undergoing excess travels, there is this need to like come back home. So it's possible that in relocating and moving, there might be this kind of homesick feeling. There might be this increased desire to find a place where you really feel at home. Because on a karmic level, people that naturally have a Cancer 9th house, there can typically be a big sense of distance between them and their family naturally. So Jupiter Cancer moving through the 9th can kind of inflame that sense of distance and lead to this feeling of longing and yearning. Even if you're not longing and yearning for your actual family, like your biological family, there's this longing, yearning, and seeking for a sense of belonging and comfort. Now, in some cases, this can also bring up some coping mechanisms that may or may not be favorable. The 9th house, it is tempted very easily. It does have to do with higher ideals, but it's such an expansive house that in a lot of ways, it's like the gambler, the risk taker, the sailor, the pirate, like it has kind of this unhinged energy to it. So Jupiter Cancer moving through it, you want to be very mindful about the types of habits you engage with and be very, very, very mindful of alcohol consumption. Just, do with that information what you will, but just be mindful. Now we're going to talk about Jupiter transiting the 10th house, or if you have Libra rising. So Jupiter Cancer moving through the 10th, this is a complicated one. So on one hand, that expansive nature of Jupiter, that fertile nature of Cancer can bring a lot of exciting professional opportunities. It can also note a promotion, a raise, some type of professional advancement. Now, similar to Jupiter Cancer moving through the 6th house, which also has a lot to do with work and responsibilities, for some people, this could note some type of hiatus or gap from their professional life to tend to family matters and personal matters. So this distinction is really going to depend on what else transit Jupiter will be aspecting in your natal chart or other transits you have going on. But for some of you, this connotes some type of gap or hiatus from the workforce. It might be you have certain family matters to tend to. It might be that you have some personal things you got to tend to within yourself. This could note, maybe there's a new baby on the way and you have to take time off of work, for that, to stay home and be with your child. So there's a lot of different ways it can manifest. This can also note in some cases, for some of you, needing more work-life balance. So it might be that your professional life or your personal life, you're not devoting enough attention evenly. So this can note a need to reclaim that balance so that you're not neglecting one or the other. Another thing that can happen here, this is a dynamic one. Another thing that can happen here too is like, there might be something about your personal life that kind of becomes blended in with your professional life. So this could note maybe certain components of your personal life starting to seep into your professional life. This is another thing that can kind of tie back to like not having a good balance, not having enough boundaries or separation between work and your personal life. Now we're going to talk about Jupiter Cancer transiting the 11th house, or if you have Virgo rising. So this is a really interesting one. So this could note a wish come true. The 11th house has a lot to do with wishes. It's not really talked about too much. We tend to focus a lot on the community-oriented aspects of the 11th, but it does have to do with wishes come true and miracles. So Jupiter Cancer being so fertile, being so abundant, this could note some type of lucky break, a lucky happenstance. This could note a wish come true, some type of manifested miracle. Now, this miracle might pertain to the home environment or your local community, Cancer being like pretty familiar, showing our comforts and stuff, Jupiter having a lot to do with the space we inhabit. So that's a way that can manifest. This can also bring heightened intuition, especially when it comes to global events and people you know personally. So your intuition can be very sharp during this time. You definitely want to follow it. You want to abide by it. And this could note intuition too in helping you navigate relationships and friendships and relationships with co-workers. So similar to Jupiter Cancer moving through the 10th, this could bring more professional connections. However, you're gonna have like the necessary discernment to figure out like, okay, should I say yes to this? Should I tackle this project? Should I commit to this? And it can also help you kind of sort through certain hangups or maybe some complicated feelings you have about certain friendships, So this can note kind of reassessing certain personal relationships in your life or relationships that you, with people that you see like every day. Two more things that can happen here. One, this can note a surprise pregnancy. The 11th house, in having to do with miracles, it brings unexpected events and gifts. So be very mindful. For those of you who do not want to get pregnant and you have Jupiter transiting the 11th during this time, be very mindful. Another thing that can happen similar to Jupiter transiting the 3rd is you might become a little more cautious of your online presence. So this could note maybe taking a step back from technology or just finding ways to like properly kind of balance like your public life versus your personal life, similar to Jupiter moving through 10th. But for you, it's really gonna kind of center on the actual public presence you have on social media. So this could note having to kind of fine tune some things, maybe for some of you taking a break. It's really gonna depend on what else is going on in the chart, but technology and social media can also become a theme here, similar as if it were transiting the 3rd. Now we're gonna talk about the last house, Jupiter transiting the 12th, or if you have Leo rising. So this is another really interesting one. So Jupiter Cancer moving through the 12th, this is another one that's gonna heighten your intuition. You really want to abide by it. This is another one also that's going to kind of force you to deal with deep-seated family conflict or tension. And not just family conflict, but just like personal emotions and feelings that are weighing very heavily on you. So this might incite like repressed memories surfacing, certain experiences in youth that you forgot happened or you neglected or you undermined the importance. It might start to surface, especially in ways where you notice that it's impacting your ability to be intimate with other people and to share and to be vulnerable and open. So this can be an emotionally complex time. You might also be feeling more tired. You might be feeling a little more lethargic. For some of you, this could note decreased like eating, like maybe you just don't have the energy to do certain things. So you really want to take care of yourself during this time. You want to tend to your body, you want to tend to your feelings for sure, and you want to monitor your coping mechanisms. It would also be very wise to be mindful of alcohol consumption during this time. The 12th house and alcohol, and Cancer energy and Jupiter, kind of a recipe for disaster. So just be very mindful. This doesn't mean you can't have a drink, but just be cautious because the energy right now can lead to a lot of obsessions and addictions for you. So it might be wise to just kind of limit yourself or create a safe barrier between you and anything that could inspire you to indulge in like a toxic habit, basically, or like long-term use. Again, here or there, like whatever, but you want to make sure you're processing your emotions in like an unclouded way, especially because that's the other thing is like alcohol can cloud intuition, and your intuition is really important to you right now. Now, Cancer Jupiter in the 12th is another one that could note an increased interest in spiritual education. So this can help you hone in on a spiritual craft or skill like tarot, astrology. You can develop like added interest in tending to this sense of spirituality, specifically when it comes to an actual skill that you would like to develop. Now, a really exciting thing about Cancer Jupiter moving through the 12th is this can allow for, think of it like a piggy bank, and you're stowing away so much luck for a later date. So Jupiter and Cancer moving through your 12th, it's a very lucky transit. It really is. Some of that luck, however, isn't really going to manifest fully until Jupiter finally leaves. This is because the 12th house is very foggy. It's very clouded. It rules over things we can't visibly see. So I want you to know that if you do feel like faith is wavering, or like this is a complicated, like this transit coming up is a little complicated, think of it as like an investment period where your luck and your karmic fortune is being stacked, but it's in like a savings account. And as soon as Jupiter leaves, you're gonna get to unlock it and access it. Now, that's not to say that like amazing things won't happen while Jupiter transit, or while Jupiter's moving through your 12th, because again, this is still a very lucky transit period. But I just want you to know that for those of you who might be struggling during this transit, it's, you know, it's not like, I just want you to know it's not in vain. And a lot of good things can come, not just during the transit, but also after it. So you're going to continue to feel the effects of this transit, even when Jupiter's no longer in your 12th, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Okay, that's the gist of what each house or rising sign is going to experience when Jupiter, Cancer Jupiter is transiting. Remember, this is coming up starting June 9th. It's going to last about a year. So from this summer to next summer. So try to just make the most of it. Prepare yourself. At the end of the day, Cancer Jupiter, it's fertile, it's blessed, it's lucky. It does, you know, inspire some interesting events and circumstances around family and emotional wellness, including coping mechanisms. But for the most part, I like Jupiter Cancer. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, which means Jupiter really likes being there too. I think that's in part because Cancer is so naturally inclined towards spirituality. It's very thoughtful. It's very much in tune with the world at large. It's very empathetic. It's very creative. And of course, it's fertile. So it's very receptive. It's very feminine. And that allows Cancer as a sign to receive. And Jupiter is all about receiving. So ultimately, I think this is going to be a really nice transit period. Of course, it is going to differ depending on the house it's moving through, but not just that, what other placements you have in your chart that are going to be an aspect to that Cancer Jupiter. So take this with a grain of salt. Certain things can be mitigated and kind of moved around energetically depending on what your personal birth chart looks like. Okay, thank you very much for watching this video. Let me know in the comments if you're excited for this transit or what house Jupiter is going to be moving in for you. And again, my website's in the description for those of you who would like to book a reading with me. Do not forget to sign up for my email list, and do not forget to like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate all the support.